Howard, help me out here. Give me just some good advice on building a threat program, or threat management program.
Sure, sure. So understand your operating model and design it to be as simple as you can, but no simpler. Don't overwhelm your operating model.
Ooh, good advice. All right, Jason, please do the opposite for me. Give me some bad advice on building a threat program.
Yeah, I'd say that everybody likes to have a sense of ownership and possession. So as much as you can build out little fiefdoms and silos and kind of own those and control them and don't let anything move between them, that's what I'd recommend.
By the way, that's a nice combination of good and bad advice. Howard, give me some worse advice than that because it's pretty bad.
Okay, so the worst advice would be do everything Jason said, but run all of the designs through three different old GPTs and leverage the price of the third one.
Excellent. I love it. Let's begin.
Get ready. It's Super Cyber Friday.
Welcome, everybody, to Super Cyber Friday. Today's topic is hacking e-crime trends, an hour of critical thinking about staying on top of an ever-evolving threat landscape. Our guest, you just saw just moments ago, it's Howard Holton, one of our favorites, CTO over at GigaOM. We are calling you people like you friend of the show, Howard. And also Jason Baker, Principal Security Consultant, GuidePoint Security, soon to be friend of the show as well. Our sponsor today is GuidePoint Security. Remember that name, GuidePoint Security. Thank you so much for sponsoring this event. All right, lots of different ways you can participate as well. We have a chat room, as you all have discovered. Our bad idea is how not to manage a cyber threat program. You just heard a couple of really bad ideas and a worse one. All right, submit tips on how to keep track of who is targeting you. I like this one. So I'd be interested in your takes on that. So remember, label them bad idea and 10% better. And join us on video at any time with Bring Me On. If you type that in, our producer Andrew will do his best to try to get all of you on to ask a question or make a comment. Go ahead and ask a question of our guest. If you look at the icons on the right, the second one down has a little speech bubble and a question mark in it. Go ahead and click on that. Ask a question. We will get to as many of those relevant ones as we possibly can. You can also submit a question for our Super Cyber Meetup as well, because we do that at the end of the show. We do on Discord. Make sure you have your Discord account. And you can also vote for your favorite question as well. All right. Today's schedule is, you saw it, good advice, bad advice, worse advice. Our bad ideas are 10% better tips. We will be discussing e-crime trends all throughout, but we will also play the public interest and a personal favorite, That Totally Sucks, as well. And then last questions to answer. And we will have our meetup at the end, which is a lot of fun. If you've never been to that, I want to see you there as well. All right. Actually, this is not 11/22/24. That should say 12/6/24. So our next one is going to be the Friday after Thanksgiving, 12/6/24. Hacking the AI supply chain. It says it correct down below. If you look at the button at the bottom, it says the correct date below, 12/6/20. So click on that at any time during this discussion, and you can register for our next event. It will not take you out of the discussion. It'll open another window and go ahead and register for that. Whoops. And then stick around for our meetup, which will happen at the end. And that's kind of what it looks like because it's all on Discord. All right, enough of my nonsense here. All right, let's talk about e-crime trends. I'm just going to start with you, Jason, on this. This is kind of one of the things you do over at GuidePoint Group is you are trying to keep track of e-crime trends. Let me just ask you, like, what is the big trend we should be paying attention to right now?
Yeah, good question. I think the biggest thing we've been paying attention to in the last couple of months, and really as we're closing out the year, is everything that's changing in the ransomware economy ecosystem. Take your buzzword of choice, right? There's been a lot of law enforcement disruption, a lot of restructuring, a lot of movement in that place, and it's still front of mind for a lot of people. It's certainly, from our interactions with clients, front of mind for most executives, most businesses, because of how invasive it is, because of how public it is, and because of the costs all across the business. So looking at what it looks like now and into the future, as those groups are changing, as our attribution is changing, as our tracking changes, that's top of mind for me.
Howard, I mean, Howard works for an analyst firm. I'm assuming you're seeing e-crime trends as well. What have you seen?
The shocking stuff that I have seen is it feels like enterprises buried their head in the sand. They still seem to think that the single hacker in their mom's basement is the main threat they have to be worried about. And they seem to have missed that these are businesses run like businesses, run with P&L. Like they're presenting targets as investment opportunities compared to all the other investment opportunities. Like these things are run like businesses. They're not run like street gangs. They're not run like the mythical hacker in your mom's basement. They are as professional, if not more professional than we are as defenders. And the attitude has got to change. These are not schmucks. These are not, immature people that don't understand how businesses work. No, they have a fine understanding of that, and they're going after money in the way they find to be the most effective when you remove ethics and morals from the equation.
That is, by the way, can I just say, I want to double down on that very last thing. There was a time, I believe, that to do this, you needed to be technically savvy. But it's turned out that is no longer a criteria. Just the lack of ethics and morals is really the only criteria you need, as you're both nodding your heads. The classic first example I saw this was ransomware as a service. Is there more to this story, Jason, that truly all you need is low ethics and morals?
No, you're absolutely right. And the term I like to use is reducing the barrier to entry, right? Mm-hmm. Ransomware as a service proved that distributed model of breaking out the different components of the kill chain can be effective in scaling. And that's since taken off with malware as a service, phishing as a service, you name it. So all it takes to bring somebody on board and contributing to a cybercrime operation now is an internet connection and a PC, right? That I think has really explained the takeoff of a lot of novel and short-term cybercrime groups, as well as the low sophistication of what a lot of folks face. The bright side of that is low sophistication attacks require less complex defenses, but still we're missing the mark there in too many cases.
But and I want to call out two things that Aman Sood said. One, highlight the risk to the business, as Howard says. The threats are highly sophisticated. So this is the classic of, where are our crown jewels? How are we protecting? But also, Aman Sood puts out a fun fact. If ransomware was a country, it would be the third richest the world. Crime does pay. But it's interesting. You mentioned this is just like in sort of before we had cyber crime, it follows the same pattern. We still have the smash and grab at the convenience store, and we also have the sophisticated how do we break into the bank type attacks. So kind of walk us through in terms of those two different types of trends, Jason.
Yeah, I would say that by volume, right, you're looking at low sophistication as the most voluminous. And I think we hear less
those
about
are
this.
The convenience store hits.
Right. The smash and grab, looking for low-lying fruit. Think of these as the people that jiggle doorknobs. And if it's unlocked, they'll walk on in and just take something and go. You're not losing as much. The impact isn't as widely felt. It's not in the 6 o'clock news, sure, but there's a lot of them. On the higher sophistication end, I mean, we think very sophisticated, you're talking nation states, but when we're talking about cybercrime, you think big game hunting and ransomware as the stuff that grabs your attention on the news, because that's overcoming advanced defenses. That's pursuing very large ransoms and very large organizations that are otherwise well defended. And in between, there's an entire spectrum that is going off after well-defended organizations, but maybe not those elephants that can afford multi-million-dollar ransoms.
Howard, what have you seen?
Well, I think it's important to understand, too, not all ransomwares are created equally. Right? Like at some point, smart organizations have been looking at blast radius really tightly and have said, we can't protect everything equally. We can't protect everything the same, nor should we protect everything the same. The amount of money it would take to do that would bankrupt us. Right? And so there are pieces of the organization that we can effectively give up. Right? So it is entirely reasonable that there's a bunch of ransomware we don't ever see because they're low value assets that are ransomed, destroyed, and recreated. Right? They've managed their blast radius. We only tend to hear about either immature organizations that don't really have what you would consider a modern cybersecurity program, right, where they get taken down completely, and we see them in batches, right? You see hospitals get attacked like crazy, Then you see schools get attacked like crazy. Then you see manufacturing companies get attacked like crazy. The thing all of these companies have in common is these are organizations that are investing in tech on the low end of the investment spectrum, right?
And they have a lot of personal data too.
Well, and they have a lot of people as well, right? And the maturity of their average user is fairly low, right? The rigor is fairly low. They have a lot of transient either workforce or people coming in and out, right? They have this blend of public and private that they've never really kind of closed down in a thorough way. Like the number of things that stack up to make those softer targets is enormous. Whereas I have yet to see, recently anyways, a banking system be ransomed, where the whole banking system was ransomed. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen. I don't pay attention to it like Jason does. Jason's probably biting his tongue right now, thinking of 5, right? But we're not seeing those to near the volume of anything else, right? I don't know that Chase has publicly announced that their banking system was hacked.
Well, to that point, let me throw this to you, Jason. Is there something that you have seen in trends? You're like, hey, this is something nobody's got their eye on, or this is creeping up, and while we haven't seen a lot of it, it's looking new. Like, I'll give a perfect example of what I mean. I talked to a CISO at a major pharmaceutical, and he said, now they got hundreds of thousands of employees, and on a percentage-wise, this is low, but this is one of these canary in the coal mine type things. I think is he sees 10 a month deep fakes via WhatsApp in his company, which that seems high for something kind of new, and this is probably going to trend up. What do you could double down on that or something else. What do you think that you're seeing that might be this canary in the coal mine type thing?
Yeah, I think what I would be most concerned about that in that regard is something that we have very little visibility into just by the nature of it. And that's, yes, it's AI, but it's not in the way that we tend to be jumping to think about when we talk about it. So a lot of the time we talk about AI and cybercrime, the references are alluding to low-level scammers, right? So I got a better phishing email, or I got a deepfake on WhatsApp and, they pretended to be my grandma. Fine. These are valid use cases, but that's on kind of the lower sophistication end of the spectrum. What I'm more concerned about when I look at cybercrime, I look to recent trends in APT operations, because what works and gets reported tends to get adopted and become a little bit more widespread. And recent reporting in that regard shows AI not necessarily enhancing, it will enhance the access measures and all of that, but reducing further the barrier to entry for malware development, for, yes, those phishing emails, for performing reconnaissance, finding vulnerabilities, and gaining initial access. And that's what recent reporting started to uptick on, and what worries me the most, because we don't see it. It's what's happening behind their screens. It's not necessarily what's touching our network.
Howard, any sort of small things that you're seeing right now that are probably going to trend upwards?
I'm still seeing a striking number of people fall for I've never talked to my CEO, but all of a sudden someone that looks like my CEO sent me a message about something that I've never done before, and I just went with it. It shocks me how much I'm seeing that, and the increase, right? As I'm talking to more and more people, what I'm getting from the audience is, no, we just fell for that last week in huge numbers, right? More hands go up than go down kind of thing. And it really blows my mind, because I would never, I've worked for large organizations. I would never assume the CEO would know my name when I was an engineer or help desk administrator.
Well, for some reason, you're new at the company and they need gift cards.
Right. Like right now. But by the way, the fun thing you can do is go to Target, take a picture of terrible, terrible gift cards, and respond. And just go, cool, I'm happy to go do that. But they're all sold out of Apple gift cards. What would you like instead? Oh, no, they're sold out of that one too. How about the trampoline store? How about the hyper local restaurant? And see how long you can keep them up.
You don't advise engaging with threat actors, do you? Just to make fun of them?
I do, but I don't advise other people to do it. I find it hilarious to do.
I'm assuming you don't recommend this.
No, I don't recommend it. I just find it hilarious.
It did. I have a friend who did this with someone who was, and he actually recorded it, audio recording, did it with one of these phone scammers calling in, and he kept saying that he was going to go to the Western Union to wire the money to him, but his car was broken down. And he was going to take a skateboard to get whatever nonsense. And the guy, just yanking the guy's chain, and the guy's very audibly getting annoyed with my friend as he's taunting him.
Oh, you should see the text chains. They are amazing as the guy gets more and more frustrated.
Yeah.
They're
All right.
so good.
We got our first game to play. Whoops.
Do you know what others are thinking? On the public interest.
All right. Here we go. This is a simple game to play. Howard and Jason. Here we go. First one. And by the way, the winner and loser will we will take this over to our next game, which will be That Totally Sucks. All right. What do you think gets more searches? Advanced, persistent, or threat?
Advanced.
Advanced? What do you think?
Threat.
Threat? I'm going to go advanced too. I think advanced because advanced could be anything. Advanced anything. I'm going with
my
advanced.
bias. Yeah.
All right. Jason's going with threat. Howard and I are going with advanced. And by the way, I didn't create this game. Rich, our producer, did. And the correct answer is persistent. We all lose. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, our 4 for 4 is now gone. That's not going to happen.
I was more wrong though.
Okay. All right. Cyber insurance, the incident response, or threat intelligence. What do you think?
Ooh. I'm going to go with cyber insurance.
Go with incident response.
Incident response. All right. And the correct cyber insurance. I'm going to go cyber insurance as well. Let's see. We have D and E, and the correct answer is D. All right. Howard and I taking 1 point each. All right. Jason, you're still 0 for 2. Let's try this again. Whoops. Skimming, social engineering, or spear phishing. This is a good one. Skimming could also refer to cleaning the pool. I want to throw that out too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's also a skim board that you use at the beach.
Yeah, there's that too as well. But would people really, maybe if they want to buy one of them?
I'm going to go
what
with
do you
H.
think? You're going to H, social engineering?
Yeah, I would go with H as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking H too. We're all going H on this one. Let's see what the answer is. It is.
Yay!
We're all correct. Yay!
Fine.
I
H
think
wins.
Francisco in the chat has done 3 out of 3, by the way.
Oh, really? We got 3 out of 3 so far. All right, I'm impressed. All right, will they go 4 for 4? Will we all go 4 for 4? Ooh, yikes.
Ooh.
All right, BEC, credential stuffing, SIM swapping, XSS. Ugh.
Sim swapping.
You all going SIM swapping?
And we were quick on it too.
Yeah. It's the new hotness in the news.
It's
All
also like if you fly internationally, you do
Yeah,
sim
something you have to do. All right, I'm going. I'm joining you guys. L. I'm going L as well. We're all going SIM swapping.
Oh,
Ah,
ooh.
I was thinking BC. I should have
Wow.
lit. All right. Well, Howard, you won barely. Jason,
Lost by a landslide.
and did anyone go 4 for 4? Who was the person who had 3 for 3?
I was paying attention to Francisco. I don't know if anybody else had 3 for 3, and he chose K on that last one, so he didn't.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, good, nice try. I got 1 at the very end.
Yeah.
Oh, well, good. Aman Sood got BEC at the very end. All right, good job. All right, now I want to ask you, Jason, a question with regards to. You guys actually created an e-crime report, yes, and publish it. Am I right?
Yeah. We put out a quarterly ransomware report and an annual one, which will be coming up in January. We're really excited about that. Yeah.
So obviously, people can just go to guidepointsecurity.com to find that. Correct?
Yes, sir. Under our blog section, we've got a whole range of them, but those ones particularly stand out.
And with all this research you're doing, how are you helping your customers in this respect?
Yeah, I think one of the things I like doing in our role at GuidePoint is how we get to integrate with our actual incident response practice. So we're not just looking for artifacts and trusting incident responders to know everything that's going out there in the wild. We're actually able to balance out those active investigations with threat intel. And at the same time, we can see everything that's going on in the wild because we're collated with our incident response team. So we put a big emphasis on context and surrounding information to broaden things out beyond the easy and the low level stuff.
Well, excellent. Well, if you would, I'm just speaking to you, the audience right now, if you would like a nice warm handoff to the fine people over at GuidePoint Security who have been watching trends for how many years now, Jason? Do you know? Any idea?
Oh, I'm just going to go wide and say 75, maybe 100,
All right.
years.
Do you think anything from 70 years ago pertains today?
It depends on your fear of steam engines, probably, but maybe.
Well, if you would like a nice warm handoff to the people over GuidePoint Security, we are putting up a poll right now. Andrew, can you get that poll up right now? And just go to the poll if you would like a nice warm handoff to GuidePoint Security, and we'll make sure that happens. In fact, we'll do it next week for you. That's when it'll happen. All right. I just noticed we don't have a single question from our audience. That means they already know everything about crime trends. Is that correct, audience? And by the way, we need more bad ideas. Please get them in. By the way, good idea from Dwayne Grand, 10% better. Negotiate your service rate with a ransomware negotiator before you need them. The price today is vastly different from when you are in a crisis. That is a damn good tip. Jason, do you have any clients who've actually done that?
Yeah. There's some folks that actually seek out retainers for threat actor communication. So that's one of the things that we do. I will say from our perspective, we're the same price regardless of if it's
Oh, really? So you don't try to gouge them at the moment?
No, that would be gross.
All right. Well, so that's healthy and that's respectable. So that is much. Yeah. That's, by the way, we didn't mention that. I would love to know that. Give us any insight you have on ransomware negotiation, like something, because I think that's like a black box that a lot of people do not know anything about. Give us some clues on that.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the disruption of being in a different time zone. I mean, most of the time you assume you're talking to somebody in Eastern Europe, right? And you assume you're talking to somebody who's not a native English speaker. And so that introduces a ton of challenges. But most of what you're doing as a negotiator isn't trying to threaten or strong arm or trick or deceive anybody, right? You're just trying to advise a client who has no idea what's going on and how to navigate a very challenging, uncertain situation. So, I think we get this idea sometimes of, we're pulling a fast one or we're tricking them or we're playing hardball and bringing prices down. No, most of what we're doing is explaining the contours of that communication, explaining that we are most likely talking to an Eastern European teenager and separating out the threats and the bluster and all of that from what's really going on. I think that's also the best
like what would be I don't even know what would be an opening discussion with ransomware actor. Like, what is your opening discussion? How does that even begin? I didn't even know.
I mean, so you're accessing infrastructure typically that's set up explicitly for the victim, right? There's a login and all of that. There's no mistaking why you're there.
Right.
You logged in you downloaded Tor, you accessed a URL that's very specific, and you usually used a username and password to access it. So as far as opening up the communications, they'll often greet you, often with the demands and a couple of the initial details of what they want you to do and what they're asking for. You don't need to say, hey, it's me. It's Jason from GuidePoint.
Right.
Yeah.
So like you're saying, all right, you say something like, we understand what your demands are. Just say, this is something extreme that my client can't handle. What can we work out here? Or, I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, typically there's my colleague calls it the dance, right? But there's a number of steps that nearly every single ransomware group I've worked with interacted with, has gone through.
It's not like you're giving Yelp reviews, are you?
Right. So for double extortion ransomware, they're often exfiltrating data. So in order to communicate their leverage, one of the first things they're going to do is provide you a list of everything they say they have, right? That's in their best interest because that is their extortive lever to get you to cooperate.
So you're asked, do they show that to you, or do you say, can you tell us what you have?
either or. Some are very proactive, and before you say a word, they'll have it over to you. It just depends on who you're working with, but they'll provide that. And then the other bits that they'll typically go through are establishing that they can decrypt files, because if you're paying them for a decryptor, you want to verify that it works before a 6-figure payout goes out.
Okay. So
and verifying that they have the actual files they're saying they have. Pretty much everyone goes through those couple of steps before you start talking money.
All right. So you're just going over the mechanics of, okay, what have you done? Can you prove to me that you can do this, that you have done this, what you have? All right, let's talk about this. You're asking for this amount of money. And then do you say, we're going to need to negotiate on this? Or like, what do you say at that point in terms of the money? Like, say all of that's been validated at this point.
Okay, yeah, all that's been validated. Really depends on the situation you're in, right? Some folks are in a great situation and they've recovered completely from backup, or maybe no encryption occurred, or maybe no data exfiltration occurred. Sometimes the bad guy knows that, sometimes he doesn't, and those are things that you can.
Okay, so you use this also to, because like what you first, correct me if I'm wrong. You know, when they send this, they usually put a time limit right on it right away, correct?
Yeah,
right.
There's often a timer, whether it's a figurative one or a literal one.
And when you're asking these questions, can you say we need more time right out of the gate because we need to get all this stuff verified? Yeah,
I mean, nothing's ever set in stone, just like in real negotiations, right? If you're actively talking about paying somebody, they'd be a fool to say, "Sorry, the timer's up. I'm out of here."
Yeah, that'd be weird.
Yeah. Okay. So
we did see one case where they accidentally posted all the information because it was set to some sort of auto dump. But
so you engage with them to let them know. Like the more, I'm assuming, the more you engage with them, the more they think they're getting their money. Yes.
No, I'd actually say the opposite.
Really?
Well, because a lot of them, I think there used to be a bad habit of dragging them through and stalling for as long as possible. That's an old kind of antiquated approach.
So they're used to this.
They're used to it, and I think the more time has passed, the less likely they think they're going to actually get paid. The ones that they think are going to likely pay direct are probably going to say, "I'm done with this. I just want to pay and get on with it." That's not the reality. The reality is somewhere in between, especially if you're dealing with a negotiator. But yeah, I think the longer they've been strung along, the more agitated they get, and the more likely they are to just say, "I'm done," and cut ties and publish.
But you also, I mean, you need time on your side to see if you've got valid backups, see if you can restore, all that kind of stuff too, with the customer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing about ransomware negotiations and threat actor communications is it's going on concurrently with response efforts. So what you know today and what you're communicating today might be different tomorrow. If you don't have that communication flowing back and forth, if you've not interacted with the folks facilitating recovery, you may be coming from a very bad, pardon the term, bargaining position.
So essentially, at one point, hopefully, you're going to know, I'm in a good situation. I got good backups. I don't need to deal with this jerk. At that point, do you just stop talking to them? Or if they're exfiltrating, then even if you can restore from backups, you still have a major problem.
Yeah, that's the problem of double extortion ransomware, right? Is I have good enough backups is no longer enough for you to say, "I'm done here." Right? It's now the threat of that carries over no matter what. And I think depending on who you're talking to, the data that's been accessed, how much of it has been accessed, and how much they're demanding, there's a ton of business processing and business decisions that have to be made around that concept, regardless of the viability of your recovery. So it used to be pretty point blank. If we recover, no, why would I pay to keep my data secure? There's enough bad publicity and press and coverage of ransomware leaks and the like that's just no longer that black and white.
All right. I'm going to throw this to you, Howard. And by the way, do you have any experience like what Jason's describing, personally with you guys? But, it's not your bread and butter to be doing stuff like this. But do you, maybe you hear trends from your own clients, or what do you think?
We do. I've also gone through a ransomware event.
Oh, right? You have?
I was the CISO of a company, and we acquired a company, and that subsidiary was ransomed on a beautiful Tuesday morning, which was a tremendous amount of fun. And the good thing was they were operating completely independently. We hadn't connected anything, and it really changed the security posture. Like it was the best possible outcome you can get from that sort of thing, because it changed the way all the way through the board they thought about security, and all of a sudden all of the things that I had suggested became unlocked. I got funding like less than a week later.
Funny how it works.
It's amazing how it goes from, well, it couldn't happen to us to, oh wait, it absolutely did. And right. And then and the great part was, because we were, effectively in the guts of the issue, the board kept asking questions like, could this happen to us? Yes, absolutely, this could happen to us. Do you not read the things that we talk about? Right. Well, how bad will it be? Well, infinitely worse. We're way bigger than they are.
By the way, I want to remind everybody, if you have not clicked the link at the bottom of the screen, please click that link and register for the December 6th Hacking the AI Supply Chain. And also, don't you forget that we have our wonderful poll. Click the poll link on the right, and please click if you would like a warm handoff to GuidePoint Security. They can help with ransomware negotiations when you need it. These guys, you want somebody who's actually done it more than once. To help you out here. That this is not a something you want to do first time by yourself, because I'm sure it's plenty scary. Actually, Jason, do you remember your first time?
I do.
And how scary was that?
It was very, but I mean, the one thing I take away from it, we still internally use the term weasels to refer to ourselves on just an internal joke. We've got a little logo about it, because in that very first one, after stalling them along and dragging them along, I got called an untrustworthy weasel, which I assume translates better in native Russian. But you never forget the first time a cyber criminal calls you an untrustworthy weasel.
Oh, you got to wear that with a badge of honor. Oh my God.
I'll do it.
My laptop. I'm an untrustworthy weasel.
that literally should.
What do you say? No, I'm a trustworthy weasel.
No, but that is your Yelp review right there. Cyber criminals call us untrustworthy weasels.
It's great.
That, oh my God, that is the quote I would put on the front page of your site.
I worked in eDiscovery for almost a decade. And so we were doing forensic investigation for a different purpose, not incident response. But you'd be shocked how many times we found evidence of attackers inside a network and had to report it. Wow. Among other things, right? We'd find evidence of data shenanigans and have to go back and go, hey, like, this isn't the insider threat you thought it was, but you probably should be aware that this is happening.
All right. I finally have some questions. I got a slew of questions. Let's try to answer these quickly, because I want to get through as many of these as possible. But this one, I'm going to start. This one's been voted up by Aman. It's Aman Sood's question, and this is more political, theoretical question. There's no right or wrong to this, but totally would love your take on this one. If paying the ransom was deemed illegal, would that dramatically decrease ransomware disseminations globally? If it's illegal to pay, would threat actors may give up trying as hard? Howard, you are nodding your head like not a chance in hell. Okay, explain.
It is illegal currently to bribe foreign officials to get your bid, project, whatever accepted, and it happens all the time. Yes. It is so frequent. There is specific training about how it's illegal. No one knows it's legal. No one gets up in the morning and goes, you know what I think is perfectly okay? It's perfectly legal to bribe an official in Venezuela. It's perfectly legal to bribe the head of procurement for insert name of company here. Yet that happens all the time. So making it illegal just means you're going to go about paying it a different way. There will be services that show up that say that offer untraceable payments. It's not.
All right. Yeah, I agree, Howard, and I think it's unfortunately just far more complex than that. I do think it has an impact, and probably a short-term impact at that. That we have the receipts in front of us just from this year. There's a multinational law enforcement disruption operation, Operation Kronos, which kind of kicked off the king of ransomware groups, Lockbit, from its pedestal that it had held for years, right? They went from the #1 spot to 3rd, 4th, 5th, because they have sanctions on them now, which is effectively the same thing. Even if I were to have a client come to me and say, we've been hit by Lockbit in the US, who am I going to find that's going to pay that and violate OFAC, violate sanctions? Nobody. So drastically right away cuts off the potential and the ability for them to receive payments in the US. And we've seen that drop off. They're still here though. They're just targeting different groups in different ways in different geographic areas.
Let me go to this question from Tina, which this is really just kind of a global question. I would love both your thoughts, but she asked it in a very expanded way. Globally, cybercrime costs are trending in the billions, while cybersecurity budgets are trending in the millions. What do you see as the solution for closing the gap between crime costs and budgets? Status quo approach to cybersecurity isn't working. And really, what I'll say is the thing with ransomware is it's low cost, low risk, high return, which is what all cyber criminals want. So as long as that keeps going, I don't see it going anywhere. So are there any of those variables that can be changed so it doesn't become so attractive? So, and then this would approach Tina's question as well. Either one of you, Jason?
Yeah, I think when you're looking at cutting back cybercrime, you can either go with like the stick or the carrot approach, right? You can either increase the level of risk or impose additional costs for participating, or you can reduce the rewards by doing something like banning cryptocurrency, right? Both of those have their relevant merits. Right now, I think the biggest thing up until somewhat recently has been the relative immunity that folks in some of these countries face when carrying out crimes. This last year has been just a bit of a game changer for that. There's been arrest after arrest after arrest, scattered spider recently, a bunch of different tools being taken offline and ransomware groups being disrupted. I'm hoping that has longer term effects.
All right. What do you think, Howard? Like, what are any of these variables do you think we can get to change?
I don't think either. Well, first off, that math doesn't make any sense. The global cybercrime is in the billions. The global security offense is in the trillions. Like, okay, it's not in the millions. That disparity, right? So the reality is that disparity doesn't exist. What does exist, however, is much like we don't talk about a bunch of things, we don't really talk about cybercrime in an open fashion, right? Which also means we're not really talking to law enforcement about it. There's a big conversation when you're ransomed. At what point do you engage law enforcement? And how helpful and how hindering are they going to be? Like, law enforcement is just a giant bureaucracy. So at what point do you invite law enforcement and how effective can they be? That needs to change, because to Jason's point, for law enforcement to be able to crack down on these groups, they need data. They need to be able to react to the data. Like, it's insane for them not to. But in order for that to happen, it has to be this really welcoming thing. It has to be this thing where we're encouraged immediately to respond, and the FBI does something, because they don't generally do anything. They're not generally helpful.
The FBI has improved a lot. How do I put this? The not shaming of victims who opt to communicate or opt to pay. For a while, that was a big barrier for people when they asked, do I tell the FBI, do I contact law enforcement? Was they didn't want to get told, no, don't do that, you're supporting terrorism or whatever it was. They've gotten a lot better at their outreach and communications.
Well, because I think they see that it doesn't work, right? And so the only way to make it work is to really change the narrative and go, like, we have to be more open about this. It's why I talk about the incident that I went through as well, because the only way we're actually all going to get better is to learn from all of us. It's got to be chemistry, not alchemy, right? It's got to be shared by the world, not hidden in a closet and only shared with our apprentice that comes later.
100%. Yeah.
Got to make stuff better.
All right. I'm interested in this. We have not, I only touched upon this earlier, and I'm eager to know, just in general, this is from James Smerenberg. Is there a trend coming on that would use AI for things like deepfakes, et cetera, a ransomware for your life? In general, I'm just interested to know, where are we seeing deep fakes being used in any cybercrime? Let me just leave it more open like that. Jason, are you seeing any trends? Like, again, I made that reference to the 10 they're seeing a month at that one giant pharmaceutical, and specifically via WhatsApp.
Yeah, for deep fakes in particular, I've not come across it directly. I think where I've heard it seen the most is in sextortion type scams, pig butchering type scams, things like that, where there needs to be a personal nexus. I've heard anecdotal use of voice impersonation, for example, for things like business email compromised in some of those gift cards.
And that's what's happening on WhatsApp specifically, is the
Yeah.
voice stuff, which, by the way, as while the video still has things, the voice, oh my God, how damn good does that sound? It's extraordinarily convincing.
Talking about the Microsoft announcement from, what was that, yesterday?
Oh no, what was that yesterday?
Oh, they're gonna. I think it was they're standardizing AI cloning for Teams or something like that. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn there. I only caught it in glimpse, but it was seen as a boon for red teamers everywhere, is making that so available.
All right, Howard. Have you seen anything trends with regards to deep fakes?
Yeah, so I think it's the revenge kind of deep fakes that are going to start to become more and more of a concern, because they're low value, they're low impact, they're also, people will generally pay to keep themselves from being embarrassed. The reality is, though, I think long term we need to shift and stop trusting crap. Right? Like look at the AI generated images that are already getting millions of hits that are completely made up, and people are sharing them as though they're news. This is also not new for people who are wondering. If you go back to the SNL Katie Couric Sarah Palin interview with I forget the name of the actresses, Amy Poehler and I can't
Tina Fey.
Yeah, the international news reported that as though that was actually a real interview. By the way, like, there were news articles saying this was a real interview. None of that was real. So the gullibility of humans should never be understated. I don't think it's possible to understate.
Well, but it's just how convincing these can be. Anyways, let's play our next game.
Their philosophy and
Oh no, that totally sucks.
All right. Now, Jason, since you did not do as well in our public interest game, you are going to be picking 4 items here on our game That Totally Sucks. 11 of these are bad. 1 is good. 1 behind here is good. And then, Howard, you only need to pick 3. And then what will happen is once you have picked, that will be in your environment. And you will be the color blue, Jason, and Howard, you will be the color red. You will see in just a second. So let's begin, and then you will essentially argue why your situation is not as bad as Howard, and then our audience will then vote for whose audience sucks the most. I will start with you, Jason. Pick a number 1 through 12.
1.
Number 1. We have an employee sells company credentials. Not good. Howard.
I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to go 12.
We're going go in the opposite corner. All meetings now take 3 hours. Okay, so this would be an example of kind of stinks, but not as bad as what Jason has. Jason, you go ahead and pick 1.
I mean, how much upselling do I have to do? I'm already in meetings that all take 3 hours. Like, what's the harm of that? I mean, this is
a good one.
Yeah. I'll tell you what meeting takes longer than 3 hours, an incident response, because somebody sold company credentials.
Yeah, that's definitely a 3 hour. We'll get back to your fastest turnaround ever. I'm interested to know. Jason, pick another number.
3.
Number 3. Here we go. Procurement takes 12 months to onboard new vendors. All right, more delays. Howard, pick 1.
Let's do 9.
Number 9. Your entire security team is related to you. Okay, again, not awful, but there's some part that can't be good.
My brother Daryl and my other brother Daryl.
There you go. Jason, pick 1.
Let's go 6.
6. What do we got with 6? Internal reports show your MSSP is falsifying their reports. Ooh, it is not looking good for you, Jason. All right, Howard, unless Howard picks a really bad one, it's looking good for Howard.
7.
Howard?
7.
7. We're going with 7. Let's see what we got here. The company refuses to implement MFA. Ooh, that could be really, really bad. All right. Last one for you, Jason. You're done picking, Howard.
Yeah. Give me 5.
Going with 5. And it is one executive's account is completely taken over. All right. Well, let's put up the poll. I think I already know the winner and loser here on this one. It's not looking good, but Jason, I'll let you take a try here. What who has now again, you're voting in the poll of who has it worse, not who has it better. Jason, why is your situation not as bad as Howard's?
I mean, what you're describing is a completely blind, completely behind, completely owned organization. We have nothing. We can see nothing. We've already lost. What I'm seeing with Howard is, I'm pretty sure I've seen in the wild. I don't think it's that much of a crapshoot. Maybe the
entire security team and related.
If you extend it to second and third cousins, I'm pretty sure there's some places that meet all of these just as it is.
Okay, Howard, why is your situation better?
I mean, there's nothing that says we don't have complex passwords that frequently change, which is a mess, but still, I mean, refusing to implement MFA, I would never, ever, ever, ever advise. It's such low-hanging fruit that it speaks to an immaturity.
Mm-hmm.
But my immaturity is not the executive's account is completely taken over, an employee steals company credentials. Plus, like, let's be honest, my entire security team is related to you. Good luck impersonating those guys. I know all their dirty secrets.
Oh, wow. That is your hook right there. All right. I'm going to count down from 10. Remember, vote for Jason if you think he has it worse. Remember, Jason worse, or Howard if you think he has it worse. I'm giving the 10-second countdown starting right now. 10, 9, get in there and vote. There's only a handful of votes, and we got a lot more people in there. 8, 7, 6.
And I just say
5,
that every time somebody puts loser equals Jason in the chat, my manager is going to see that. It's going to be great.
4, 3, 2, 1. It's pretty clear, Jason, you have, quote, won/loss. That totally sucks.
All right, buddy. All right.
By the way, but here's one way he can win if you want a nice warm handoff to GuidePoint Security, because, by the way, that totally sucks. Does not reflect the security environment they have at GuidePoint by any stretch. I don't think your internal reports show your MSSP is falsifying their reports. And procurement, I'm assuming, takes less than 12 months.
Yeah, no, we're at 11 months, 29. No.
All right. We've got lots more questions, and please just go to the poll where you see if you'd like a warm handoff. And actually, I'm going to hide this poll. Whoops. Poll is visible. Oh, excuse me. It was hidden. I'm sorry. All right. Great. And any more great 10% better tips? What's worse as well? Remember, I do want to remind people here that I'm actually wearing it right here, the CISO Series jacket. The one who gets the best what's worse wins one of these awesome jackets. If you've already received one of these awesome jackets, you do get an Amazon gift card as well. So there is something to play for here. This is decided the following week, which will happen, will happen the first week of December. I do have a panel of CISOs that judge who has the best bad idea. So it's an independent panel. They don't see any names. They just see the bad ideas, and then we pick the winner for that matter. All right. We have a little bit of time left. And, oh, by the way, let me remind you, everybody, click the link at the bottom of the screen to register for Hacking the AI Supply Chain on December 6th. And also stick around because we are going to have our meetup on Discord. Oh, also, if you type meetup : anything you want to talk about, we will bring it up during the meetup as well. So go ahead and do that right now. All right. Let's get to our questions from our lovely audience. Okay. This is a good question, and we actually did an entire episode about defense in depth on this very topic. And I'd be interested to know, Jason, I'm going to go with you on this first one. From Aman Sood, do you see any particular threat actor groups that target companies undergoing mergers and acquisitions? If so, what particular suggestions controls would you suggest? We did a whole episode of Defense in Depth on this very topic. Essentially, do companies going through mergers and acquisitions become bigger targets for threat actors? And your answer, Jason, is?
Two-part answer. One, targeting is different from impacting. Just because they're being hit more doesn't mean it's because they're being deliberately targeting, just that they are more susceptible. Two, they get hit more because of the amount of ambiguity and the conflicting security environment and controls and the lack of consistency there. It's sort of they're a victim of the M&A process, and that's why they get hit more, not because people are on the Wall Street Journal looking for M&As to hit.
That's a good point. Howard, anything to add to that?
Security is only security when it's global?
I don't think it's just, well, I guess, yeah. Well,
right? Because every time you have two different products to solve the same problem, you have space in between where things get missed. Oh, I thought you were covering that one. No, I thought you were covering that one. Right? you have conflicting policies, you have conflicting procedures, you have conflicting tools, you have conflicting teams, which means things get dropped. I no longer have one place I can see where my security is. I have 73, right? So security that's not global isn't security. Stop thinking about it that way.
Jason, I want to go to the question that I alluded to in our last game, and that was, what is the fastest you've resolved a ransomware incident, and why did it go so damn fast?
Can I answer that from a negotiation standpoint? Because I've not worked an entire ransomware incident start to finish. That's an IR thing. That's
okay.
I mean, as far as support,
well, from your essentially from your window. Okay.
Yeah, 24 hours, less than 24 hours.
Wow. And why did it go so quickly?
They were hit. They said, "Oh, we've been hit." They got a demand. They said, "Okay, I'm going to pay the demand," and
right away.
Then they paid the demand and they turned it around. And I don't typically recommend going that approach, but that it's a good point about like the cost of downtime and your operational disruption dictates how attractive that ransom is. If you're losing $2 million a day and the demand is $20,000, that's an easy business decision, and I don't blame them for making it.
Yeah. That's, nobody likes to do it, but that's a perfect example of yeah. Oh, what is the lowest ransomware demand amount you've seen?
$10,000.
10,000 is the lowest.
Yeah.
And have these all been business hits, or have you ever? Because we've seen individual hits that are in the hundreds of dollars.
Oh yeah. I'm just talking business and an organization. But I mean, at $10,000 for most folks, not to be dismissive, but if you get a $10,000 ransom demand, your response is typically going to be, "Here's my Amex, take care of it," rather than let's negotiate and spend time doing that.
Right. Howard, let me ask you, you had an ugly ransomware incident. How long was that painful experience?
So we had a really good idea of what the downtime cost.
Mm-hmm.
We had a way to manually mitigate the downtime. Mm-hmm. So the actual impact to production was more, we're paying people that can't work rather than, like office people that can't work, rather than we're impacting the bottom line of the business. So the bottom line impact was relatively low. At the same time, the acquisition that we made was one of the most immature tech companies that we'd seen. The newest piece of equipment was 7 years. Their backup infrastructure hadn't been supported for almost 7 years. To give you some idea, it was a little bit more than a week that we were.
So Tuesday to Tuesday.
Yeah.
All right. Probably your least fun week ever.
I mean, we hadn't taken it over, so there really wasn't I didn't get egg on my face, right? It wasn't like my decisions led to this, or any ability to make decisions kind of led to this. It ended up being as fun as that sort of thing could be. It was high stress, but stress is not the same thing as least fun. There was a lot of activity. There was a lot of work. There was a lot of, I got to learn new things. I get to see new things that I never want to experience twice. And I get to experience ransomware in about the safest for me environment humanly possible. And I ended up being at the keyboard fixing the problem. So that was actually kind of nice. I don't get to do that very often as a C-suite executive.
Good point. Hey, here's a question from James Smerenberg. How often are firms hit by ransomware unable to recover because the key doesn't work? So, because that's always the fear of, hey, we got hit. Is this going to work? We're going to pay it. It's going to work. So what would you say yes, you pay, you get the key, everything's back to normal. What is your percentage of success in that respect?
Recovered without a hitch, probably 70%. Recovered with some troubleshooting brings it up to 90%, 95%. I've had one case where didn't work, and then the threat actor just ghosted and completely disappears. That's not something you have to keep in mind. For a lot of these groups, they are attached to a certain brand if they've been around for a while. And when word gets out that their stuff doesn't work, or they take the money and run, nobody's going to pay them in the future. Where I get more worried about that, and where I advise clients to go a different direction, is when it's what we call an ephemeral group, or a group that we've never heard of, or that's been around for just a little bit of time. There's no incentive for them to make sure that it works and delivers. And they're often using somebody else's encryptor that they stole and fiddled around with a little bit.
right, I am going to start to close up this event. By the way, everyone click the link at the bottom of the screen, Hacking the AI Supply Chain, because it's going to change in just a couple of minutes. And I'm going to have one final question for both Jason and Howard before we go. And by the way, stick around for the meetup because we want to see you over our meetup over on Discord. Hang tight. That'll be available in just a second. Hey, thank you, GuidePoint Security, for sponsoring this very much great event. This was fantastic, Jason. I learned a ton from this. And if you would like to learn a ton and learn more from GuidePoint Security, you need to go over to that poll and click one of the options there so we will give you a nice warm handoff to the fine people over at GuidePoint. Hey, starting soon, in about 95 minutes, will be our Cybersecurity Headlines Weekend Review Show with Jimmy Benoit, the VP of Cybersecurity over at PBS. I have a relative who works at PBS, at the NewsHour, in fact. That all happens on our YouTube channel. So if you go to if you go to youtube.com/CISO series, or just go to CISOseries.com, you'll find the YouTube link. Join us. It's fun. They go over the week's news in about 25 minutes. There's a chat room where you can chat about the news. We use your input. We put it into our programming as well. So please join us over there. Hey, stick around for a meetup. Now you can change that link at the bottom of the screen. That'll change. There it goes. Changes. Join our meetup. Go ahead and click on that. That will open up Discord. The lower left-hand corner is where you have your sort of audio and video stuff. Please join. Please participate. You can lurk if you want. Sometimes people like to lurk, but we love it when you participate. We love to hear and see you as well. Now, do you want to sponsor Super Cyber Friday? Well, good for us. Actually, the fine people at GuidePoint are going to be sponsoring our event on the 13th. Now, I'm blanking out what the heck the name of that one is. I'm looking it up right now. That one is going to be called Hacking Technical Debt. Oh, that's going to be a fun discussion there. Technical debt. That's going to be good. So, but if you want to sponsor Super Cyber Friday, next available slot isn't until the end of January. But email us at info@CISOseries.com. We would love to have you there. All right. We have just 3 minutes left. I'm going to ask you, Jason, is there anything that we did not bring up? I'm sure there's a ton, but think of one that's critical that we did not bring up in the discussion that you would love to make sure that everyone is aware of and knows about.
Yeah. This is something that I care about a lot and that I'm keeping an eye on is kind of the blurring lines between how we've traditionally categorized different threat groups, hacktivists, nation states, cybercrime. A lot of recent reporting, especially around the Russia-Ukraine conflict, has centered on how some of those lines are blurring, and I've personally seen that myself with nominal hacktivist groups spreading well into cybercrime and that blurring a long time ago. I think we need to consider a lot more about what these groups are doing and where they're generating effects when we look at how we categorize them and how we factor them in to our threat model. McDonald's isn't going to necessarily worry about a Chinese APT, but organizations that dismiss hacktivist groups and the like in the past may be wise to reevaluate that.
Very, very good tip. Howard, same question to you. Anything we did not bring up that we should have brought up as well?
I don't think within the threat actor space, Jason's got some amazing tips there. I think, overall, this is not getting simpler, right? Today is the day that this industry has moved the fastest in recorded history. And today will be the second fastest. So it's never been this fast. It's never getting slower. That doesn't mean get overwhelmed. That means really get a good idea of what you can get your arms wrapped around and make sure that you build out a good ecosystem of people that can advise you and information sources you can trust so that is as efficient and effective as possible, and so that you know where to go when something happens. When I went through the ransomware, the very first thing I did was call the chief security officer at a cybersecurity company that I was close with that had an IR team, and we were I had the IR team engaged in less than an hour.
That getting help, that is also a fear thing. I'm sure that's the number one advice you get. I remember, quick funny story is I was about to record in person, and my sister calls me and goes, "I think I clicked a link and it's wrong. What should I do?" And I go, "I just happen to be sitting here with two CISOs who could probably give advice." I put her on speakerphone, and they all said, immediately call the tech, your tech team, your tech support team, and go change the password for all, your social accounts and things like. Jason, is that the same advice you provide?
Somebody clicks the link, and what should they do? Yeah, I mean, depending on your support, if it's internal or external, notify somebody. So yeah, change your password,
As
absolutely.
fast
But I
as
think the
possible.
next thing is, yeah, notify your security team so that they can look for where else this hit. You're probably not the only one, and you got to hunt for that.
Mm-hmm. All right, good point. Well, we're at the end of the show right now. Do me a favor, everybody, click the link at the bottom of the screen. And huge thanks to Jason Baker over at GuidePoint Security and Howard Holton over at GigaOM as well. We greatly appreciate you being here. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Rich, for producing in the background. Goodbye, everybody. Click the link and join us over on Discord.